Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to all the panelists. I think, are still struggling after 10 to 15 years in the industry with a basic fundamental question, and that's the topic of the day. Are we in the right business model of shopping center? Is the business model shopping center which is currently prevalent the right model? And our eminent group of panelists who wear multiple hats, starting from developers to retailers, some of them wearing both the hats together, are going to be sharing their thoughts on this. We'll just be joined shortly by Kishore, who is walking by from Inorbit. We have Aresha on the far right from Trent. We have got Nikhil sitting beside him, Mr. Sunil Biani from Future Group. Kishore just walking up the stage. We've got Pranay Sinha from Star Centers, who has been one of the pioneers in retail and continues to do developments. And we have got Mr. Vinay, who is from NITCO and is a part of the infrastructure support, who has a lot to do with how we develop the malls and what is the infrastructure and construction material which goes into it. So coming back, so let me start off with Pranay with you on what's the right business model of a shopping center? Yeah.
Good business model is where the investor ends up making some money at the end of the day.
Okay. And you feel developers are not making money?
But,
You feel developers are not making money?
But I would say that 80-90% of the people who have made shopping centers have not made money on it. So, I would say the correctness of the business model before starting the project, that is very important. And I think, at a very large scale across the country, developers have gone wrong on that, which has led to a disturbing sentiment with institutional capital, with the occupier community, with a lot of dead malls, a lot of vacant spaces in malls and things like that. So 10, 15, 20 shopping centers probably got it right, planned it right, set the right expectations for themselves and for the shareholders. But yeah, I think getting your assumptions right in the beginning. What should be the size of the asset? What is it that gives the comfort level that if I build this asset, it will get an occupancy level which is decent. That occupancy level is going to come at what kind of a rental, which is not linked to what the rental going in the market is, which is usually what people do. But it should be linked to the trading density that the stores are going to achieve. And I think over the last 10 years, there's enough data available today to be able to do a forecast that, okay, a West Side is going to do this much over here, Starbucks is going to do this much over here, discounted by 10, 20, 30%, arrive at the occupancy cost based on that, and then see if it makes sense to invest the money in construction and land.
So just to, I think, capture the main points, you feel that we are still struggling with the fact that we are not doing our research, a fundamental research of the viability of a shopping center on that well. And maybe I'll just shift to Kishore. Kishore, you've built a couple of shopping centers. Have you, one honest opinion, have you failed in any of the project as a feasibility? I mean, have you decided that you'll go and do a shopping center and done it right and gone wrong with it?
I think so. I would just prefer to just go back and also just...
No, I would like you to just tell us once honestly, candidly. Have you gone wrong in building a shopping center? It is coming straight from Inorbit.
Yes, absolutely. We have to be candid. We have gone wrong somewhere, and it's not that everything has been right. And that's a very, very specific answer, I would say. But also to elaborate, I think so, I think the last 10 years in the shopping center has been a tremendous learning. I mean, the industry is very young per se. Our center in Malad and maybe a couple of other people have today are completing 10 years. And that's been a tremendous learning. And I think so, the most of the problem that we are seeing today is that I think so, most of the mall development, the projects which got started happened at, at a time when the whole economy was in a euphoric, times. 2004, 5, everybody thought that, everything is going through the roof, and, for some vague places also people thought we could get a 300 rupees a square feet rental. And fine, that was the mood that time, and I think that's what many things went ahead, and a lot of things went ahead without a proper research and whatnot. But then typically in India, like everything else, we have a very fast learning curve. So now we have reached a stage where people are now realizing we have a data of last 10 years of operations and, how things have moved. I think going forward, things are going to be very, very different. But having said that, I'll also mention that, when we talk about a mall, a model for a shopping center, it's a very challenging kind of a question actually. So there's nothing like a very, very fixed model or something somebody can use it just as a template and, try to work around it. There are, each market's very, very, very differently. Like, we always say Delhi and NCR is a different country altogether. Because the kind of consumptions which you have in that area is just unparalleled, and one can never think of replicating it in Bombay also. So I think if one has to take each city very carefully and each location very carefully, and then start working on a model for each of them all. And again, I would say that most of us have really gone wrong is mainly because of our, euphoric, our just in the think that just everything is growing, and with 8-10% GDP growth and everything is going to get rolled into that, and it's a train which is going fast, and you're going to take a ride onto that, which obviously has not happened, and a lot of people are under grief because of that.
So just coming, so you are saying that you do a lot of research these days, and you fundamentally identify each location as a different country altogether and are specific.
Absolutely. With Innovate, we do a lot of research, and I feel that's a very core thing. As a matter of fact, the research is not only limited at the time of setting up of the mall. The research is an ongoing affair, because if you see the area where you put up a mall keeps on evolving. If I were to give you an example of Malad, when we started Malad, the capital values of properties, they were like sub 2,000 rupees a square feet. Today, Malad is 15,000 rupees a square feet. So obviously, the people who were there and the new population which has come in there is of a different, capacity. I mean, their affordability is very, very different, and consequently, their needs and their wants are very different. Hence, 10 years back, we could have never thought of doing a Calvin Klein and selling a jean for 7,000 rupees in Malad. But today, we feel we can even go ahead and do a larger and maybe go in for jeans for 7,000, 10,000, 15,000, because that's the affordability today. And you have to be keeping in track with your customers and understanding their requirement. Otherwise, it's so dynamic. The whole thing is changing so much that unless you're keeping in touch with what your customer wants, I mean, you're just going to be phased out.
Coming back to Mr. Shah. So, as a big box retailer, and I'm again going to come to Sunilji after that, but first starting with you, do you do a lot of research when you take up a site? Or maybe when you're evaluating one of the Innovates, would you be doing a lot of research specifically, or you'll just go by their report?
Data. And we try to do household data. And on that basis, we have a data of our 80 stores, how they are performing. On that basis, we can declare what sales will happen in that location. And usually, we take the data from site research. The property has to give that data on the basis of location, what you are getting in the mall, and the movement of the customer and footfall and all that. Plus, business makes the visit, operational people. So, and then we make the decision on what should be the sales number and what should be the rent.
So I have got two questions for you, fundamental ones. One is there at any time a disconnect between what is your data telling as an affordability and a price you can pay, and what the developer, in this case, because Innovate is there and maybe Nikhil is there, what they say that you can afford because of their research? Is there a disconnect?
I don't see there is a disconnect in the number, because numbers are numbers. Household data of next 5 years or 6 years, what they are declaring, one can see, one can go there and have a look at it. So then I think it is what is required is basically what's the start affordability. And many times we go for revenue share or we go for step up rent. It's because of that.
So the next question is, most of the mall developers here will agree that the anchors always offer very nominal rents, sometimes lesser than construction price. And let me just finish. And already, we had Pranay who said that when you do your prediction, just see what is the viability and discount it by 30%. You will come back and say, okay, the landlord is quoting so much, let me discount it by 30%.
I think every business has to look at affordability, and they can also work for what is the average rental they are going to get, and what are their returns.
So is there a margin of safety in the numbers which you offer at every place? Is there something where you think if the landlord is doing a center in a very expensive location, can the retailers be a little bit more committed?
Up to a certain point, we work along with them. But if it is not affordable, then we have to leave the property.
Yeah, which
it's
is
always
perfectly.
it's always like that.
Yeah. So Sunilji, now on Future Group, so you have been a group which always drives by the gut, understands the 2-3 sides of India, and I think the pioneers in many markets with lesser number of data. Like Shashab says he's got 80 stores. You've gone into markets where there was no organized retail. So how have you depended on research in all these markets?
Research is finally figures, which may be right, which may not be right. It's more on gut feeling and understanding of the market. We are right sometimes, we are not right. But retail luckily can evolve, can change. Maybe the mix is wrong, we can change the mix. But when you create real estate, it's creative. And if that mistake is made, changing it is a little difficult. And what we have seen across India, where Pranay was saying, luckily we had 18 or 20 malls which are successful, a lot of malls which have not been that successful. Is a reason which are, I think, linked to a lot of the developers working together or creating 10 malls in one street, which the market cannot consume to a large extent. And the retailers, maybe there are, let's say in Kurla, LBS Mark, I think we've got 6 malls there.
Yeah.
The market has not grown the way it was projected to grow, or the figures which everybody had done a research.
Yeah.
I believe each and every developer there, or the mall owner there, has done a research. Each based on that created 1 million square feet.
Maybe they didn't do the competition research properly.
That's a major problem which is there in this country today. And unless we work together, maybe from the retail point of view or from the developer's point of view, to understand what that market can consume, how many square foot it can consume, and allow only that much area to come up, only then malls would be successful in this country.
So I have got one question which is arising. And sorry, I'm getting so many questions. Sitting here, I should be getting lesser number of questions. But my question is, there are a handful of anchors, 5 to be precise, right? And everybody who thinks of a mall, dreams of a mall, comes to you first. So you know every project on the street. So even after you tell the developer that, there are 5 projects, this market can't sustain, I can take only 1 location or 2 locations on this whole street. Why are there 6 malls?
He's
18 anchor spaces.
He's already invested, he's bought the land, he's already done all the planning, and then he comes to us, okay, we require you.
So is there somewhere that the retailer is going wrong in committing to the landlord that, okay, you have invested, let me also go ahead and commit with you? I mean, why? So 6 locations will have 3 anchors each, will be 18 locations.
Look, internationally this works in a different manner. Internationally, a developer goes to the major retailers who he wants to be a part of the mall before he actually starts doing something, and he makes him a partner, which is not the case in this country. In this country, they decide by themselves, they create the design by themselves, half the thing is done before they actually go out in the market. And the reason may be the rent, ab jaunga, to rent kam milega, baad mein jaunga, rent zyada milega, whatever the planning is there. Unless they start working more closely, retailers and developers together, till that time we would have this problem which we are in today.
So Nikhil, the question to you is, are the retailers and developers working together?
I think
you have been doing malls which are not metro projects.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of views which retailers have when it comes to a non-metro location, etc.
Yeah.
So you all obviously have done a well-funded, well-researched project. How are you working so closely with the retailers that they come over to all your centers and they're occupied?
I think the product speaks for itself, but I'll just put it into perspective that India is a very, very different economy than the European economies, and there is no restriction on competition. So typically, if you try to develop something in a growth corridor, what's going to happen is that maybe the requirement of the area today is 400,000, and you say 400,000 is what I'll build, but if someone comes and builds 700,000 next to you, you are in trouble. So the challenges in our economy is we've got 17% of the world's population and only 4% of the landmass of the world. So land is intrinsically expensive. The savings economy, 50% of our savings goes into real estate. So if that is the state of the economy, this is only a long-term business. This is an infrastructure business, which if you are happy to invest for 12 years, like everyone here is talking about, viability of a project. I promise you one thing, that if anyone is buying land today in any area in India, it's not viable. I promise you that. If he does not fund it partly through residential, it is not a viable project. Please show me a land parcel, I will buy it.
So
if it is viable for any retailer.
So I think
so basically what I'm saying is the amount of equity required in this business. Normally you would do a debt equity ratio in a long-term infrastructure project of maybe 75-25. But in today's environment in India, the equity required is minimum 50-50. Debt equity and that is normally never the ratio in any infrastructure project in any part of the world. So in India it is, and obviously people look for higher return on their equity, and our interest rates of the banks are as high as 14 and 15%. So what returns can you expect on your equity? So the challenge is the way the industry is progressing, and I think we have to address it at a government level if you want to correct the anomalies. I don't think it's a problem of me not working with a retailer. Basically the retailer is saying, boss, the residential in this area is 4,000 rupees a square feet. So according to this, I need to pay only this much. But the land price is disproportionate. So I'll buy it at 2,500 rupees a square feet for land, and I'll spend 3,000 rupees on construction, 5,500 rupees. I have a reasonable expectation of profit. So I'll say 6,500. So at 6,500, at 65 rupees is not viable for the retailer. So there is a problem of the model. Until the government doesn't intervene and correct the model, it's an infrastructure business and we're trying to fund it like real estate.
No, is the government looking at it as infrastructure?
We haven't approached them.
The first year sales for any store or any brand, it's a new or an old brand, would be X. The next year we will have a 20% or X% growth. The year after that is another 20-25% growth. When we see the fourth year, we have 40% growth. We understand the customer understands. In that regard, we can pay, let's say in the third year, a 40% or 50% more than what we're paying in the first year. That step-up approach, if that is not taken in a long-term thing, and this I agree with Nikhil, mall business is a business which is a long-term business. It is not a short-term business. If people are looking at it in a 3-year or 4-year horizon or 5-year horizon also would not be in the right place. It's all a 7 to 8-year horizon. If people can play in that part, it's a most successful and most profitable business.
So again, I come back to two silly questions. Sasha, have you ever offered a 40% increment on the third year rent?
Revenue share would get that.
Many places we are only revenue share.
Okay, so you're saying it automatically captures.
I think in 6 years we have doubled the sales. Many places. 4 years, 5 years we have doubled the sales.
So let me just turn to this side. Pranay, does the business modeling which say, developers or consultants who develop involve this 40% growth which will be captured by revenue share? I mean, is the business model capturing this part?
No. And most of the time, or a lot of the time that we've seen, the model also doesn't capture the stabilization period of the asset in terms of occupancy levels, in terms of vacancy CAM, in terms of all the pre-development costs which are required to be spent until the mall stabilizes and until those become recoverable from CAM, rental growth, rental is taken as a fixed number, 100 rupees per square foot. It will open in April 2017, so it's taken from April 2017, the whole rent will come in. I think the more experienced developers are definitely able to do the assessment very well. But as a sector or as an industry, it still needs to shape up and take all these experiences into account.
So Kishore, the question is, do you capture this 40% increase?
I think so the question is to be seen differently. It may be a 40% increase for him, but is that 40% still hitting a revenue share figure?
Which is sustainable for
you're only going to get revenue share if that 40% growth or 20% growth, whatever. It's depending what you're starting on the base for. We rarely find people really hitting revenue share in a period of 3 years. Very difficult. Very difficult. Because I think it takes about a year or 2 years for the mall to basically stabilize, understand the market, retailers to understand the customer like, choices, designs, etc. So you're really, frankly, growth comes out beyond the 3rd or 4th year.
So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is that the retailer for the first 2-3 years is paying more than he can afford.
In a way, yes, I would say yes.
And here we are saying that at what they are paying, the malls are not affordable. So how do
that is the biggest challenge, because today we are having to buy land which isn't competing with other users. This is what we have been talking to various governments, with the Maharashtra government also. I was in dialogue personally through RAI. Is that when we are buying real estate, we are competing with other users, because in Bombay especially or any other state, there's only just a commercial land. Now commercial land, you can do so many uses. You can do a hotel, you can do IT building. At one point of time, because IT building got 100% extra FSI by paying a small premium, they were in a better position to bid for the land. Today residential is at a skyrocketing prices, so everybody is able to look at buying a land to service residential. Hence, we are always in a disadvantage. So that's what our request has been to the government, is that you need to do zoning. And the zoning would be that, okay, fine, given a catchment of, say, an area of 50, 60, 100 square kilometers, or whatever it may be, whatever it works out, maybe I'm just putting a wrong figure, that you will have one mall for that. One maybe a large center of 1 million square feet, and maybe another 2-3 of neighborhood centers. So that way what happens is that we even one is that when we go to buy those lands, we are competing only with those people who are having to use it as a mall. Hence, the cost will be more correct from a business point of view. It's similar to what Bombay today has, that we have a zoning in Bombay for hospitals. There are various plots which are earmarked for hospitals. Nobody can build anything but a hospital there. So what happens is, when that owner is selling the land, he is only able to sell it to hospitals, people who want to put up hospital, and then everybody is on an equal footing in terms of affordability of the business, which doesn't happen in case of shopping centers. And secondly, when people are given this particular opportunity of doing what they want, everybody is doing their own estimation of what will be the growth and what will be the consumption. So we are landing up into a situation, as what Mr. Biyani mentioned, you have 6 malls in LBS. Now, I'm sure everybody has done homework, and where we have obviously gone wrong is that the estimation of growth has become wrong. Otherwise, I'm sure everybody who is putting in 300, 400 crore rupees for a center obviously wants a return. So I think so we are also avoiding national waste, where unnecessarily creating competitive situations. So the best thing would be that the government comes out with zoning for shopping centers, and realizing that it's an important community of a township and a city planning, where we have, which is a model being followed in many countries. Even countries like South Africa has zonings. So you really don't have malls coming up sitting next to each other.
I think
But the zoning is there for commercial, for retail also.
So Delhi, they have zoning, which leads to another challenge.
there is 3 malls in one place.
Where the government says yes, there are 3 malls together, one, and it becomes very difficult to change that. Second, the outbidding which then happens, that often leads to a distortion of the auction value.
The bidding will always happen, but at least it's happening from a particular type of user. So there is a limit. But if you are going to be competing with a different user altogether, you are on a different footing. And obviously, I think so the issue of this, I think so possibly our city planners are not taking into consideration that fine, they may feel that 4 malls can be there together, but then where do we have the infrastructure for people to come to those malls? See, it's very fine thinking that, oh yes, I look at it that, oh, as a city we have got only 2.2 square feet per population, whereas the international standard is 20 square feet per population. I mean, those are figures, but then, it's statistics. How the people are going to reach there? So fine, we can have 4, but then are you going to have a metro service? Are we going to have proper road? Today, half the time, today we are finding that we have to keep on reducing our catchment because the size of the catchment, because the whole travel time is increasing. At Malad, when we started 10 years back, in half an hour you could come from maybe from Bandra. Today, half an hour you can't even think of coming from edge of Jew here.
One question to you was, especially when we are talking about this real estate shopping centers as infrastructure and about shopping business as an industry, how are the other businesses which are similar in nature, for example, the hospitality industry, etc., able to manage in this? How are they managing the funding? How are they managing, the development and the control? How is the control happening in those industries?
See, as we were discussing a little while earlier, I think it's quite important for shopping malls to get infrastructure status. Because if infrastructure status is there, like now they have included hotels infrastructure, it allows banks to fund them over a 15-year period. Because the build-up of a mall or a build-up of a hotel itself, from the time you buy land, could take up 5 years or even 6 years. And then if the loan is over a 10-year period, it leaves only 3 or 4 or 5 years for payback. So it's quite important for the industry to come together and move for shopping mall, retail outlets to get into an infrastructure status.
So, but how does that why have we not succeeded after 15 years in getting real estate and even retail, which is more of community and more of social infrastructure, a semblance of an identity as a social infrastructure?
I think with strong association of the developers, mall developers, I think it's possible to move the government and get the infrastructure status. But I think concerted effort needs to be made for that.
Have the retailers succeeded in getting retail as an industry status? I know you are struggling with labor laws, timing of working hours, etc., etc. But have you made any headway in it?
It is happening in Hyderabad as well as it is happening in Delhi. Is it a lease land makes more sense for malls? Because cost structure is the more important. So I don't know, if we work for a different model in a shopping complex. At this moment we are discussing only land is purchased and it is built and then it is rented. I think we have to work on a different models.
Interesting. I think that Hyderabad and maybe it's happening in Delhi also is very interesting. So, Kishore, one question. Have you as an investor or a developer who is building centers focused on, say, Hyderabad and Delhi to look at these projects to, say, get land on lease rather than buying?
Land on lease is an opportunity, but then I don't think so. Wherever we have seen so far, we've been able to get any kind of a land at a reasonable price. And I think so also what is really affecting the industry more is, yes, land cost is there. Land cost is hitting more on the metro cities, I mean the tier 1 cities where the land cost is very high. But I think the other issue which is also happening is the delay in the whole process of construction. What we are finding is that what we started off maybe 5 years, 10 years back with your interest component being 10% of your project cost. Today for most of us, I keep on sharing information, interest is 30% of project cost. And that is only purely because of the fact that you are making a large down payment for land. The whole gestation period for a project is almost 5 years, 1 year to even just get approvals. And then although we keep on saying we have surplus manpower, but whenever you are constructing something, you are always in shortage of labor, So the whole, I think somewhere down the line, we have to work towards crashing the whole construction time. Yep, the approval time, if the government could help through the single window clearance or whatever way you want to call it. And I think that's going to be a very major saving itself, because if you could shave off 20% of your project cost by just cutting the interest, that will be a major saving. And the land cost is, I think, a larger challenge in a bigger city especially, because today, like, we were just talking to somebody for a land in NCR, he's talking about 6,500 rupees a square feet FSI. Now, 6,500 rupees a square feet FSI, by the time you finish the project, the land cost itself will be 10,000 rupees a square feet FSI. Plus construction cost. I mean, they're talking about spending 15,000 rupees a square feet For a finished product, a 15,000 rupees a square feet for a million square feet is 1,500 crores. You will be expecting at least 200 rupees rental. Now, which retail model is going to be giving you a 200 rupees rental is the question. It's a very big question. Plus, then when you are going to take such a large development risk of investing 1,000 crore plus, you are looking at more margins to having to build inside delays and, so many issues which keep on coming at various points of time. So it's a challenging model.
And next question to you, and it's a separate topic. How important is design from the perspective of feasibility or the business modeling? How do you get flexibility in the design, and how do you ensure that design is benefiting you in the feasibility?
I think design, we would distinguish between design and retail planning. Retail planning is a make or break exercise for shopping centers to succeed. And if the planning goes a little here and there.
Can you just elaborate on retail planning?
Retail planning is once you know that, okay, this is the size of a center that I would have comfort building. Say it's 3 lakh or 4 lakh square feet. I'm getting a floor plate of, say, 100,000 square feet. So, in terms of, locating firstly the balance between anchors, non-anchors, small stores, big stores, different right sizing of stores, planning your mix in a way where you don't have to rely much on the low pay, low rent affordability categories or players. So strategizing that simultaneous to the planning exercise, and to do the planning in a way that you know who you are kind of planning for. So, for instance, a shopping center which did not require a shopper stop or a lifestyle, planned itself during the design process itself, that, okay, let's do it in a way where we have the flexibility to do without a shoppers or a lifestyle, by having 8,000 square feet kind of junior anchors. And the cinema is going to then, take the lead in drawing people, etc. So planning and design, both of them are critical to the business plan and to the achievement of numbers. Demising of stores, for instance, cutting certain stores into sizes like 150 square feet or even 50 square feet can make a huge difference to the revenue model of a shopping center.
Is it feasible? Interesting things, everybody comes and asks for 150 square feet. Is it feasible to cut stores in that sizes?
Of course. And give them data connectivity and give them air conditioning if required. And if a shopping center, you have to build your shopping center assuming that yes, you're putting in all this work, it will succeed. When a shopping center succeeds, even 5 square feet people will come to you. 3 by 3 people will also come to you.
And how about designing for flexibility? Like, you plan a 500,000 square feet development, but suddenly we go through 2008, 9, 10 when everybody shrinks sizes. So are the shopping centers which are being designed flexible enough to play with the size of the center, to make it smaller, to give alternate users?
Like Nikhil was saying that this is a pre-2007 kind of a question, because after 2007, everybody is now planning shopping centers where they can increase or decrease, not increase so much, but decrease. But I'll give you an example of Inorbit, Kishore, if I may. 1999, I was part of the team that was doing the feasibility study and the business model for Inorbit. At that time, the only shopping center in Bombay was a 150,000 square feet crossroads. There was no other shopping center. Ansal Plaza was 120 or 150,000 square feet also. So the confidence level in 1999 of being able to create the center size could have been up to 1.1 million square feet. The confidence level at that point of time of doing something of 1 million square feet was clearly not there. So it was planned, it was structured as it would be in 3 phases of around 3.5 lakh square feet each. Between 1999 and 2002, when the construction was in full swing, there was already effort put in by the Inorbit team to be able to bring in a significant amount of occupiers into the building and to say that, hey, we actually have a need for 5.5 lakh square feet. So the first phase of Inorbit, instead of being 3,30,000 as per the plan, eventually when it came to the drawing board or it came to construction site, already was expanded to 5.5 lakh square feet. And it has room for another 5.5 lakh square feet, which is now going to be phase 2 instead of one phase. So yes, if it's a large scale project, it is better to do it in with incremental phasing. You also get better values out of it. If your first phase succeeds, then your second phase is able to fetch you a lot more. Instead of keeping flexibility for shrinking it, I would rather build small and then have room for growth.
Just coming back to Nikhil, I think one thing which you told is still catching my attention, and that was that maybe in times to come, for getting the cash flows right and for making projects more viable and to reduce the equity, making developments along with residential will make better sense for developers. Is that something which you are really facing in the market and doing?
Yeah, I genuinely believe that it is actually not viable at all to build it without residential today. Unless you have a 100-acre development, even that 100-acre development will have a portion of residential, and that's how it will achieve its viability. Retail as a as a standalone project is an infrastructure project. Basically, in India, real estate projects can be maximum funded for a period of 10 years. 2 years is your minimum construction time. 1 year, you would require moratorium to survive, because otherwise you won't be able to survive. 3 years, 7-year payback. Today, you show me any land you can pick up, it is not viable. You will not be able to pay back in 7 years. Whether it is a big city, small city, or a village. Even in a village, it's not viable. Now, if I put all these factors into place, all I'm saying is, if we go into infrastructure status, or we say, my own cash flow from residential or from some other source will make sure that I pay back in a period of 7 years, make it viable, because it's a long-term good business. The issue is, can we fund it in the current structure? Internationally, people are, we say that international companies want to come to India to invest in the mall business. The fact is our interest rates are at 14%. So look from a bank's perspective. Look from the risk. Banks would anyways risk analysis of whatever they would do. So the first thing they say is the safest money to give is to a residential guy. 3 to 5 years, 6 years, anything happens, he'll be able to return my money safest. He says, okay, office, he's made the building. If he leases it out, I'm safe. Still better. The worst case scenario is retail. I don't know what he'll do with this building. I don't know how many of his constituents will come and give me how many thousand stories. And the bank has no control in the end. Let's say if someone defaults on a big office space, all he does is, yaar boss, किसी को किराए पे चाहिए, किसी को खरीदना है, कोई ना कोई ले जाता है. Retail space का कौन buyer मिलता है? So the banker is shivering. He's saying, what is this I've got in my hand? So most of the bankers today, they are requesting you, please take this asset from me. Can you please take it? And I'm telling him, no, it's a 5-floor asset, I don't want. He's saying, okay, pay me for 3 floors, break 2 floors. Yet, is it viable for you? This is the conversation going on with banks today. The number of distressed assets in the market is funnily high.
I'm seeing Sunilji smile a lot. Sunilji, what is your comments on this?
No, I don't think it's that frightening as what Nikhil is stating. But yes, look, Pranay and I have been involved in the last 1 year in a couple of projects which we have tried to turn around. And we've been quite successful. We did 3 or 4 of them. In 2, we had made mistakes ourselves. We got Pranay in. We were at an occupancy. We are now at 92 or 94% occupancy. The asset was not making money. It's now making money. So what I realized from that whole thing was, there are a lot of people who have made mistakes in terms of the location maybe, or the tenant mix what they've got inside. And most of the time what I have seen is design is a major issue. But yes, to fund it, to balance the whole act, yes, you require things to be done. But I think most of the places, if you see where the malls have not done well or the malls have not been successful, has been there is too much oversupply. Be in the commercial area also, there has been too much of an oversupply. And that has actually killed the market to a large extent. The number of retailers are less, And once they see there is so much of supply, of course, the retailer is going to bargain. And that's what's actually happening.
Usually, when standalone buildings are there, the retailers are doing funding. We have done it, the funding for the construction, we have done that. But as far as mall is concerned, I don't think in initial stages the partnership is happening between retailer and mall owner.
This you're telling after 15 years, every year you come on stage here and tell that we want to partner, we will put our best foot forward, and now you're saying nothing is happening.
No, it is, I will to say, if standalone building, you fund the construction part, do everything. So it becomes little easier to do that.
We see a lot of retailer balance sheets also. So where does the retailer get money to fund? Sorry, I'm asking the wrong retailer.
Look, but if you see, recently we've involved in 2 projects where the developer actually came to us before he was the thought of creating a mall. And he came to us and he asked, this is the area we want to create, would you want to be part of this, what of your concepts can come in, and how can you work along with us? We saw that he wanted to create 1.2 million square foot in a city, which did not require more than 400,000 or 500,000 square feet. We advised him, we told him, we're ready to do it, we're ready to sign so much of an area. He's doing, I think, now 450,000 square foot in the place, and the rest of the thing he is working on, I think he's doing commercial space, which is selling off, and the viability is coming. Those cases happen if a developer can come to a retailer and discuss with him, work things out, and actually we have created a design which we wanted, be for the hypermarket or for the central what we're doing there. And I think he's already done 75% of the place in the last 18 months.
Let's say somebody who actually listened to the market and the research of your inputs.
No, not our research. He asked us. He did his own research and
he was doing 1 million square feet after that.
That's what research told him. And I think there was another person who was doing another 500,000 square feet in the same area. So the research said you required 1 million square feet and there are 2 million square feet being made there.
That what Mr. Shah mentioned, internationally is a norm. People work with retailers, means mall developers and retailers work together. Unfortunately, in India, it's not happened as a partnership. But if you see the portfolio of, and I'm talking about people who have a small portfolio. Walmart has a portfolio of $70 billion of its own real estate assets.
Yeah.
You have Tesco, which has 35 billion pounds of its own real estate portfolio. And they have done this in partnership. Everyone knows the IKEA story. So there is a lot of opportunity to work together. At the same time, I do not believe retailers would be very happy investing at the 14 and 15% interest rates which exist today. So somewhere, if we get industry status, we get a 15-year period for, repayment. So the retailer can then discount it over, he says that, okay, every year I would have paid this much as rental. Rental plus this much is what I'm ready to pay. That's how this model works. Today what happens is that the retailer doesn't want to come in because his rental multiplied by 3 is what he would have to actually pay as the repayment of his debt. Whenever this translates into rental multiplied by 1.5, you'll have every retailer jumping in to say, I'm coming in with you and I'll partner with you. And it's a very normal, proposition internationally.
Yeah, so just sticking to this, Sasha, and you've been thankfully wanting to contribute a lot to the developers. Because I want to take away something from you. A lot of developers here wanting to do deals with you. One thing which they all struggle with, and is linked to funding again, is that every time an anchor comes, he says, nothing less than 21 years, and he starts negotiating. I want a 21 years term, and when it comes to lock-in, he says 3 years. When he goes to the bank says, it's a 3-year lock-in. I'll at best fund it for 6 years. And that's why we reached the 10-year phenomenon. If you had a lock-in of say 10 years, the bank would be forced to take a 10-year term on it. You give a lock-in of 15 years, the bank will be forced to take a 15-year contract for that. And now you say you have 80 stores and sales in every market, and you can reasonably assure the performance. Reasonably. I'm not telling that
we can give a higher deposit and low rental and work on that. It's easy to work that way.
No, how about increasing the lock-in a little bit more than the 3 years?
Lock-in also, if we work together and we do more research, and if we create the confidence to the retailer, they can give more lock-in.
And how much can that be stretched to?
It can be, I think most of the places we can stretch to 21 years if you want.
That's
And
an
if they are ready to give us 30 years, we can do 30 years.
Kishore's eyes are, shining. I'm sure he'll catch you too. No, but do you think that higher lock-in from a retailer, especially your anchor tenants, will help you better in raising funds?
No, obviously the higher lock-in is indeed very helpful because typically if you see from a shopping center development, you go for construction finance and then later on roll it over as a lease rent discounting, which is the best model, and then the lock-ins in that are very helpful. But one thing which I would like to comment in this is that from an anchor perspective, everybody is wanting to get into more and more longer period with the developer locked in from a point of view of insulating themselves from the rate increase which they fear would hit them, because with a 21-year agreement or something with specified escalation, they're able to peg it down. But I think so, that's a fear which is little. I don't believe that they should be fearing periods, because if they are doing well and they are relevant, if they are not doing well, I'm sure they'll themselves want to exit, because even at that cost, they will not be making money, at that low rent. And from a mall's perspective, if any tenant which is faring well and has doing it makes no sense for them not to renew with them. And I think so always in this business, as we have seen in the last 10 years, is that your pricing is always very realistic. You will never be able to, as Shah very correctly said, if he's not getting the rate which is affordable, he leaves the project. So similarly, the developers have to have a realistic pricing and work on more stringent and maybe tighter formats to have better productivity, which is, I think, so the main thing today. If you're not able to get productivity, you're out. So I think that this fear of the period of lock-in and whatnot has to go, I think. So the anchors today are frankly wanting very, very long period lock-in, which is not required.
So long periods but shorter lock-ins.
Shorter lock-ins, but I think so the question is also that I think so the mall developers in this environment require a lot of flexibility, because you'll find that you are not relevant. It's not the question of, you have to keep on adopting, you got to keep on changing. If FDI is opening up and you got 25 new brands coming in, and if you are a mall where you don't have space to accommodate them, then what do you do?
So how are you?
So you are in a challenging situation.
So again, just to stick on this topic, how are you keeping your centers flexible to get this new?
What we work on is to keep our lock-in as low as possible.
Lock-in or tenure?
Tenure.
So you
lock-in means it's lock-in or tenure, whatever way you put it. If we are also locked in for a lower period, good.
So you're saying that you would rather give him a shorter tenure,
yes,
so that you're flexible to get in an international retailer when he comes in?
It's not a question of that the brand is not performing well. I think it's a question of the mall being relevant. Because what will happen is that because of, as I mentioned earlier, of no zoning and whatnot, it's always practical. It's always going to be that maybe kilometer down the road or 2 kilometers down the road, you're going to have something which is coming up very bigger. And how do you counter that? So you only counter that by being relevant and making appropriate brand changes as the market demands.
So again, I just want to sit on Shah Saab's side and just ask you this fundamental question. Today, when you're making the center and you don't have an international retailer, you're welcoming me and telling me take a shorter lock-in and be relevant. And tomorrow, when the market has evolved from a 3,000 rupees mallard to a 15,000 rupees mallard residential catchment, you want now to get Calvin Klein, and then suddenly Shah Saab is out.
Again,
but that's exactly what his fear is, that I will build the market, I want to earn from that.
Absolutely. So you are working on some period which is a reasonable to give him that kind of return and to obviously take back the cost that he's incurred. So I'm not saying that you bring it down from a 21-year to 2-year. And the person who's doing well also will start doing badly. So, it's a chicken and egg situation.
So, I just have one more question on this. So, do you think this FDI opening and these international retailers coming in will increase the feasibility of shopping centers? Just curious.
No, I don't think so. That's not going to increase the feasibility. I think so ultimately what is going to increase feasibility is the productivity and having flexibility. I think the productivity of every retailer is one of the most crucial aspects. And unless you're not getting productivity, is not giving you revenue share, nobody's going. I don't think a mall developer will anytime make money on getting minimum guarantees. It's never going to happen.
Is there a difference? And I should ask this to Mr. Biani. He's got brands which are international in his portfolio as well as brands homegrown and created. Is there a fundamental difference in productivity between a well-established international brand and a homegrown domestic brand? Again, well-established. I'm not taking away the respect of somebody who has created a brand. I'm just telling you have both in your portfolio. What is the difference in productivity? I think one is obviously aspirational. So
Yes, there would be a difference of 20-25% initially.
only 25%.
Yeah, 20-25% initially. But over a period of time, how the brand settles down in India, understands the market, works on that, you will find a difference which is there. And there are a lot of international brands in the country and the local brands, and you can see a vast difference between the prices. But yes, an established brand in this country over a period of 2 years, and a local brand, you would find a big difference in that. But again, you'll see a lot of international brands who come, who have not been able to give productivity and may have not been successful. It's again a balance of who's understood the customer, how well he's understood the customer, and how he's delivering.
So then Kishore may be partly right in saying that I want to be relevant and maybe get better productive international brands and want to be flexible till then. Yeah, I understand.
I think over to Pawan.
Sorry? Yeah, sorry, I forgot. See, I think the mall being relevant is the basic issue. And obviously the productivity is from a commercial point of view. I'm sure there are many centers which are relevant but may not be really making money also. So I think there are two different issues. First, you need to be relevant to be able to draw the business and get the footfall and get the sales and whatnot. Then obviously the productivity is the next stage. But yes, productivity also is very important, and that comes out of the correct sizing of the store, which is very important. We have seen anchors, who have been historically working on just wanting to take more space and more space, because they believe that, okay, we are locked into you at a lower rate, and that is giving them that arbitrage over a period of time. But then that doesn't help the mall, because at the end of the day, I think so. If everybody you have to see it as a holistic, that it has to work for both. It's absolutely very mutual.
In fact, I agree with Kishore, and we have seen in our concept a lot of concepts where we have actually, over a period of 3 years or 2 years, we have actually given back space to the developer, and they have got some other brands who are better for the mall, and we have actually seen our efficiencies going up, which has improved our business to a larger extent. And this is something which is, that's the reason design is a very important factor when you're creating a mall, which allows you this flexibility to move and do those changes, because things are, you create a building which is going to last for 50 years. And the model keeps on changing. And a country like India, it changes and evolves much faster than it does anywhere else.
First, I have one question to you. All these developers on my side of the table are thinking the construction cost has risen, say, from 2,500, which they used to talk about 2 years back, to 3,000, 3,500, 4,000. You being somebody who provides these materials to all of us, is it possible for us to reduce the costs by indigenous manufacturing, by smart planning or something like that?
In fact, that's the reason why I was here. I was asked by one of the mall developers, real estate person, that please come and visit the retail exhibition, showcase the product. We are able to, as a group, as a tile company, able to provide top class, which are international standard products at domestic prices. Up till now, anybody who needed to give high-end flooring materials required to import them from Italy and Spain, and those are almost double the price of what we are able to offer here. So we are able to substantially reduce costs for a developer, which helps in his payback period.
And this obviously will be kept across the different spectrum. So tiles, air conditioning, everything will be included in that. India is developed enough now to get products indigenously developed which are of international quality.
Well, even if it's not indigenously developed, you've got also international companies who are now opening the manufacturing in India, or who are now offering the products in India to match the requirements of a local developer, so that they don't have to pay fancy prices of importing products.
The next question which I have is a little bit to do with, what is the right product for India? As in, we initially started with a shopping center which has 70 to 80% apparel, one multiplex and a small food court. And wherever I go, I keep seeing that we all keep telling we need more footfall drivers, and food is the larger driver and entertainment is a larger driver. And on the other hand, I see that we don't have depth of retailers, we don't have enough food operators, we don't have enough entertainment operators. So Nikhil, my question to you is, how do you see this progressing? Are you seeing enough operators coming up? Are you seeing the driver shifting from an apparel to, say, F&B or entertainment?
If you see the evolution internationally, it's very, very clear. The size of the stores keeps increasing. India is the only place where I've seen size of stores of retailers shrinking. Internationally, it has always been increasing. So some of them who have become successful become much larger, whereas a lot of them get phased out. In India, people are becoming smaller. From the biggest to the smallest, everyone is becoming smaller because the productivity per square feet does not match the rental expectation. And so everyone is in the process of trying to find out better throughput through a smaller size of store, correcting the model, this, that, everything. So that is one effect which is, and because in the organized retail, we said India was 5% organized retail. But in the organized retail, in the total retail pie, apparel is supposed to be 12 to 13%. But out of the total organized retail, 50% was apparel. So obviously apparel was expected to grow at the lowest growth rate in the organized retail space. So obviously it's feeling the pressure the maximum. And today if you see what is happening to food, that food was the least organized. So that is growing at the most tremendous pace. And if you see it internationally also, you will see food and entertainment becoming a necessary ingredient of every center which you see in any part of the world.
So, Pranay, I think the question to you, how or is the relevance or the importance of F&B and entertainment increasing as the years go by? I mean, when we started off, say maybe 5 years or 7 years back, there was some component of F&B and entertainment. If you design a center now, would you increase the percentage of food and entertainment so that you generate more interest in the center and you make the mall more, get higher footfalls?
I would agree with what Nikhil said, that I think it is an important ingredient. And I would say that 10 years ago, when a center was being planned, the desire to have the quantum of entertainment and food of a certain amount was still the same. Just that there were no players, there were no operators, there were only local players who were very reluctant to move into malls. Today they're probably more open, there are more number of players and things like that. But I think a shopping center is for shopping first. बाकी सब चीज तो ठीक है, लेकिन if the shopping is damdar, if the shopping is good, then everything else are add-ons which you may require depending on the scale of your center.
So you're saying F&B is an add-on, it's not?
Well, a certain amount of F&B, I mean, look at the GK2 market, for instance. There's practically no F&B that has survived over there. But the market has been a very popular and very successful market. So I'm saying that if you won over the woman's heart as a shopping place, then that's the first step towards success. After that, if you want to win the family, the man, the child, everybody else, then everything else comes in. If it is a large-scale center, you have to have these. You have to have a large amount of all of these. So if you're doing a 1.2 million square feet mall in the middle of Greater Noida, you got to be kidding yourself if you think anybody will come there to shop, unless you do something which is bold, big, dramatic, which is a big driver. Shah Saab was involved in the planning of that asset right in the beginning. He sat with Hafiz contractor and did all the line drawings at that point of time. So it was already configured with a lot of drama. It was already, it needed to have. So when CCD came to place, they took 4 locations in that mall, in a place where there's practically no catchment. So depending on the situation that the mall is in, I would say F&B and entertainment and theming and all these things would increase.
What's your view on theming? Do you think theming is going to go on increasing from here on?
I think to a certain extent one has to do it, because at the end of the day there's also a large cost attached to that. So, and moreover, I think yes, to create a differentiation, one has to have something today. More, since getting into more and more competing environment. So typically, I mean, I won't talk about theming separately. Basically, the experience is what we feel is important. So it has to be more and more experiential, so that there is a need for a person to come there and not sit on his laptop and click away and buy things. So that the experience would come out through theming, through more fooding, more entertainment option, and I feel these are going to be components which will grow over a period of time.
So I just have one more question, and this thought came to me from Pranay, where he mentioned that shopping centers may look at reducing the anchor sizes or making smaller anchor, depending on the market and research, etc. Making smaller mid-sized anchor locations so that the productivity can improve and the paying capacity of the retailer can improve. So in your planning, do you consider these type of thoughts, or you still go by that we need a traditional anchor and we need to give him a big space?
I think so. The relevancy of anchors is different from different cities. I think that's a crucial aspect. Maybe in a metro city, if you ask me, I mean, my personal opinion, maybe I would say you don't require an anchor. You could.
That's a very strong statement.
In a tier 1 city, I'm sure you could do. Tier 1 city, you could do away. Certain tier 1 cities, you could do. Maybe you could do without an anchor. So it's a situation. I mean, it's a question. Select has done it. So it's not that, there's no hard and fast. People keep on telling me we have multiplexes are necessary. I personally believe they're necessary. But then we have Vashi, which is now working for 6 years and doing excellent. We don't have a multiplex. We are adding, that's a different issue, but we don't have a multiplex. So I guess I think this whole paradigm is changing. I think what were the thought processes couple of years back? I think the last 5 years has seen a lot of things. A lot of knowledge has come, and I think so I really wouldn't just make a statement that no anchors are required everywhere. No, I wouldn't agree.
So you're saying that as in orbit you have seen shopping centers survive without a multiplex. They could reasonably work if the location is right, especially in a metro, without a larger big box anchor, and manage with mid-sized anchors. So Sunilji, what will happen to the concepts you have which are large? How will you operate in cities? I mean, would you be looking at standalone centers, or are there still developers in cities who need the strong big box as an anchor?
I think we have always worked in both the things. We're working with the mall, we're working independent buildings also, be it a big bazaar or be it central. We have both the models. Yes, sometimes, let's take the case of central, because central, which are 300,000 square feet also, which does not have a multiplex, and doing quite well. And we have centrals which are with this thing. But yes, as you were discussing about food, we have seen a lot of places where the food has not done well because it's being in the top place or something of that sort. And I believe it does not give the best returns, which is being looked by the developer. But we have seen where when you give them the right positioning in the right place in a mall, food actually does much better and gives much better returns on per square foot basis. I've just seen that because we saw in a couple of places of ours, instead of taking them right on the top, on the 4th floor or the 3rd floor, the 5th floor, we've taken them on the lower ground floor or the ground floor. And those stores, those F&B outlets are actually doing much better than some of these sections on the ground floor.
Interesting. And I'm sure the question will then flip to you. Have you considered these thoughts that F&B can come in a lower level or a ground floor level?
Absolutely. I think that's how it is happening. I think this whole concept of having F&B at one level is passé, is gone. I think you need to have F&B at various levels. We have coffee shops today sitting in prime spaces in our mall and maybe giving us 1/3 the rentals of what the neighbor gives. So I don't think that there is as I mentioned to you, today this whole model of a shopping center is very, very dynamic, very, very fluid. So, even when I say that I would do without an anchor big box, it will be a very challenging decision, and it'll be coming out of different circumstances. It's not that one could do it for all the locations in the best of the cities. You could not. So it'll happen on location to location basis. It'll depend upon the financial modeling, because at the end of the day, with the kind of cost we are, there is a need to balance and get revenues accordingly. So it's not a very general decision. The question comes out as if like it's a general decision. No, I think it has to be weighed, and it has to be seen on respect of each and every property separately.
Just wanted to add to that, I did not mean that centers do not need anchors. We have redefined anchors. We've redefined anchors. So for us, a 700 or 1,000 square feet Mac or a clinic is actually an anchor. For Shravan, the first McDonald's that he did in Gurgaon was his anchor.
Completely agree. So just to, I think before we go to the audience for questions and wrap it up, if there is one sentence which you would want to say to the audience.
What we are getting sales increase, SPF increase. The cost is increasing much faster than that. Including manpower cost or electricity cost, all these costs are increasing much faster. So you can't see the bottom line basically. And that's the challenge, how to keep the cost down, how to increase the productivity. That's the challenge. And I think with the shopping center as well as we can work together towards that.
Nikhil, your views, the final views.
No, we'll go to Q&A, I think.
Yeah. So can we take questions from the audience?
So both the retailers have been talking about that in the revenue share, we give 20% increment every year, and third year after third year, I give an increment of 40%. In that way, indirectly you get a good return. But once the retailer hit the 40%, he tries to open a second outlet in the same city, and thus cannibalizing the same store growth. So how does you work on that?
I think all the developers are out here. No issues. Okay. Look, what I stated was that there is a growth year on year of 20% or year on year. Our revenue shares are an X percent. So if you're starting with, let's say, 4,000 or 5,000 rupees or 6,000 rupees a square feet, the next percentage of revenue, there's a growth coming every year. But it's assuming that the developer is giving at a lower rate initially for the retailer to survive for the first 3 years. When you're coming to the point of opening another store, it all depends from a city to city. Of you require to open, you don't require to open. If in like a city in Mumbai or a metro city, yes, you require to open. But if you go to a tier 2 or tier 3 cities, I don't think we require to open another store for the next 3 to 4 years. But it all depends on the relationship between the developer and the retailer. These things keep on happening.
Why can't we have a reverse agreement also, lock in that retailer will not open a second store for, let's say, 5 years? Why can't we start this?
I think we can work that on the agreement when we sign that agreement.
Next question. Yeah, and some also are doing that. And not only tenure, but even territory. So there will be a territory agreement as well.
10 square kilometers, 5 square kilometers.
So my question to the sir, that we were discussing the zoning part. Zoning by the government for the particular sector like hospitals and the retail sector. Do we have any control on the zoning, like the particular land parcel which has been given for the retail sector doesn't fall in a wrong hand? Wrong hand, I mean that even if we take the example of Saket, what we were discussing, the 3 malls are there. The 2 are the success story and 1 very good for the Halloween parties, that's it. How not the entire retail sector turns into a Halloween party? How can we avoid that thing?
So his question is, do we have any control on the zoning? So like we said that we want zoning in cities.
Zoning in a mall or zoning in a city?
Zoning in a city, sir.
City.
Zoning in a city.
Normally, all these processes of town planning, etc., are open to public, and people are allowed to comment when the government comes out with such city plannings. So these are development plans which the government makes, and there is a full process where the plans are put up by the government, and there are a long period available to the general public to comment on them. So one can give their views onto that, and those views are considered before those plans are finalized.
I appreciate that thing, sir. But how come Suppose a developer who doesn't consult the leasing team but the sales team before developing a mall takes the entire space. So the entire space goes for a waste because no retailer would be moving in that mall. How can we control that thing, that the mall comes to a right person?
His question is that if a developer takes a plot and he doesn't know shopping center and he messes up with it, then there's no regulation to it.
Exactly, sir. Entire area is messed up because he doesn't understand the shopping center.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll ask you a question. A mall is a public place or a private place? If you can answer this, you'll get the answer.
So, mall when developed is a public place, but until and until it's under construction, it's a private place.
Do we have the right of admission reserved there?
No.
Why not? I mean, I can shut my center today, and who can question me? I can handle retailers.
Right.
Who can ask me to open the center?
I didn't get this, sir.
Who can ask me to open the center? If I want, if I choose, I can shut my center today.
Exactly, you can.
So then it's a public place or a private place?
So it becomes a private place.
So if we answer that if it's a mall, a shopping center is a public place or a private place, there is no definition in the law. Which law governs shopping centers is also not clear. We are governed by Shops and Establishment Act, which is very, very old. So the question is that, I mean, this will come little later once the law is done.
Exactly.
Yeah, both of us are here. What we are saying, it is messed up only when the developer doesn't have a vision. If there is no harm in having 2-3 shopping centers together, but if these 3 developers have a vision, they can create a destination. By not poaching the retailers, complementing each other, and in that way the destination can be created. And I strongly believe in that. Would you agree on that?
In the specific case of Saket, the Saket master plan was done after a consultation with a core group from CII back in 1999, based on which a 1984 master plan was revised in year 2000, and it finally came out for auction in 2002. Nobody picked up the large plots. In 2003 is when the plots found buyers. So it was done in consultation with the industry.
Can I take a liberty of asking something wherein you said that F&B is a pylon? Why? Oh, what?
F&B is not a pylon.
yeah, I got it that way.
I just said
Let me finish the question. Okay, what I believe so far with my retail experiences, there are 5 drivers to the mall. One being cinema, then other being beauty, then fashion. F&B is a strong an anchor. Of course, you can do away with anchors depending on the size of the mall. If the size of the mall is big, you can't. They are a big footfall drivers. But F&B will bring stickiness to your mall. Without F&B, you cannot retain people. People who have come and parked and have shopping destination in mind, they want to sit and eat and relax.
I totally stand corrected.
Thank you.
So thank you very much to the panelists and to the audience. You have been a wonderful audience listening us patiently.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we please have a huge round of applause?
How